So hello everyone and welcome to our webinar today, which is Trends and Claims in the Beauty Industry. So before I make a start, this webinar is being recorded and I'll be sending out the recording at the end of the webinar. And there's also going to be the chance for a question and answer at the end. So please feel free to put any questions you have as we go through in the Q&A box as we go through the webinar. But most importantly today, I really want to give you guys an opportunity to use the chat function. We might put some things on as we go to kind of prompt you for some chat ideas and we can brainstorm some of these trends. But also I'd love to hear your feedback about any future webinars you'd love to hear from us. So it might be that we look at a trend and you think, oh, I didn't hear enough about that. I really want to hear a whole webinar about that. You can let us know. If there's a trend we don't cover, but you wanted to hear about, if there's a type of study we discuss, anything that comes to mind as we go through it, please do put a note in the chat function because what we'll be doing is tailoring our next webinar at the end of March around what you guys feed back to us. So quite exciting for us to see what you come up with. So really today we're going to be looking at some trends that we found really interesting. We did a similar webinar not long ago, so it might be that we go into some more depth on those. But yeah, we've got some new trends we want to talk about as well. And obviously really specifically, we're going to be looking at claims, how they're substantiated, what claims we're seeing, and having a bit of feedback on that as well. So I'm joined by Thomas today as well, and he'll be introducing himself shortly. But the agenda for today, we're going to be looking at some interesting trends. Exactly. We'll be looking at the claims and talking a little bit about the legal situation there and how they're validated. And we've got some case studies as we go through for some of the trends we'll pick up. So you can kind of see in real context what we would do to substantiate those claims. So Thomas, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please.
I'd be happy to. Welcome to everybody. And for those who don't know me, I'm Thomas Marquardt. I'm the managing partner for Germany, so leading the German business for Ayton Global Research before having joined Ayton Global Research in 2014, well, almost 7 years ago now. By now, time is flying. I spent most of my professional life in market research in Unilever, where I had a couple of roles in market insight, in different category roles, in national roles. I'm German, in case you haven't realized, Germany, Europe, and then also finally the globe. And after I left Unilever in 2012, at the end of 2012, I created my own consultancy and, as I said, took over this business. And I'm living my passion of bringing the consumer closer to the people and to organizations, because I feel market research and understanding of consumer is vital for everybody. And it always frustrates me to see if people are not really picking up on this. On the other hand, it enthuses me if I can bring the enthusiasm and the energy to really understanding the consumer, because I think it will help all business in the end. But I don't want to talk about this. I think we've got some other topics today.
Thank you, Thomas. And to introduce myself formally, I'm Carys, and I am the Regulatory Director at Ayton Global Research. So I've been at the company for about 8 years now, so I have a huge amount of experience in conducting consumer studies for claim validation. But really, I'm now more focused on the kind of step above that, on the regulations, and thinking on more of an overview. Why do we conduct what we do? What can we do to make our evidence to substantiate your claims? And what are the regulations involved there? So that's really where I was saying today. I'll be looking at advertising regulation, claim regulation, and thinking about the legal landscape, certainly that's involved in the work that we do. So kind of to get us started and to be thinking about claims in general, if it's something you haven't really looked at before, or maybe you just want to refresh your knowledge, we want to talk about the criteria for cosmetic claims. Now, this is from the EU Cosmetics regulation. However, I love their 6 common criteria because I think it really relates to anywhere you're selling in the globe when you're looking at cosmetics, what you should be thinking of to make sure that your claims are going to be compliant. So to break down their 6 common criteria, we've got legal compliance. Obviously, your products need to be legally compliant. They need to be made in the right way. They need to be made with good manufacturing practice. But obviously, this can't be stated as a claim because this is something that everybody has to do. You'd be surprised how many people kind of put this as a big thing on their packaging and say, oh, it complies with the EU regulation. Well, every product has to. So it's not really a claim that you can make about your product. It has to be truthful. Again, it seems quite an obvious one there, but for example, if you were to say that your product had aloe vera in it and it's soothing, there has to be a high enough level of that aloe vera, otherwise it's not truthful to the product and it's not going to have any effect there. So obviously anything you say about your product has to be substantiated, it has to be true. And in terms of substantiation, of course, you need to have evidential support. If you're making a claim, whether it is direct or implied, it needs to have some kind of evidence behind it. Direct and implied claims are quite an interesting topic and something you can look at in more detail. But essentially, if you had, I don't know, a claim about your product and you had all of your product range up there and you said make skin feel soft, if you only had one product actually substantiated with that, you're actually implying the whole product range does it. So you need to make sure you'd have evidence behind all of those products to be able to say that claim as well. You need to be honest. So this is where we really say you need to be very clear about what the data has come from. If it is a consumer study that we've done, you need to put that really clearly in your evidence on your claim, or if it's clinically validated, you have to be very, very honest about what that evidence has come from. It needs to be fair. This is something we really look at generally with competitive claims. You need to be fair to your competitors. So it could be a direct comparison claim. You could be saying this shampoo is better at removing dandruff than this shampoo. If it's a dandruff removing shampoo, that's not very fair because it's not going to have that effect. So it's kind of a good context for thinking about that. And really at the bottom of it all, your consumer needs to be able to make an informed decision about purchasing your product. So if you are combining all of these together, they should be able to do that. It's also things like making sure your claims are worded in a way that's easy for them to understand. You see a lot of scientific claims out there that actually it's kind of like, well, it sounds really impressive, but what does that actually mean? Can a consumer make an informed decision about that purchase? So really, this is a great thing to think about with your brand. It's always good to be a brand that is putting all of these together, whether it's legally compliant or not. It's a really good thing to show off about you, that you are complying and that you care about your consumer and you care about your adverts being truthful. So Thomas, do you want to talk to us a little bit about the claim validation itself?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. First of all, just to state the obvious, claims are vital to market your product. In the end, a claim is something in a very shortly summarizes what your product does to your consumers and how far it helps and how far brings a solution. Well, of course, it requires some insight and some understanding of your consumers, as we referred to back to in the beginning. But in the end, so you need them. Otherwise, you can't really market your products. What I always like to say, what I've seen in the past is often sometimes claim come out at the marketing element at a very late stage where someone says, oh, by the way, we need to say something about our product, so we make up a claim. Yes, you can do that, but in the end, this is not really maximizing your opportunities, because in the end, it's about understanding what your consumers need and what they want and what can help them. And so it's a kind of joint effort of development and marketing to identify what the product needs to deliver and how to claim it. That's why I feel like it's a kind of iterative process and a joint process in the organization. Claims have to be validated. I think Carys made that point, and she's the real expert on this, and why all the legal requirements are there for validating claims. You cannot just make a point and say something. It has to be clear. It has to be substantiated. Validation can happen in a lab. And this is what we see most often in the cosmetics industry, that people check in how far a claim is functions or not. So it reduces your wrinkles or moisturizes your skin. You can validate this in a lab. On the other hand, some of these, or many of these claims, you can also validate with consumers. Because if you tell it reduces wrinkles, you can either measure the depth of wrinkles or the number of wrinkles, or you can ask consumers who've tested the products for a while, do you think it has reduced your wrinkles? And you get another substantiation. The advantage, of course, is we do the latter, and the advantage for you often is that this is faster and cheaper. That's why I said many claim versions can be designed to be tested either way. Yeah, and as I already said, it tends to be faster, cheaper, and more flexible. So that's why it can be useful to talk to us.
So I really want to recap first on the trends we talked about last time. So as mentioned, we conducted the last webinar back in around September. So really trends are kind of forecasted per year. So not a lot has changed with that. So I really want to recap what those are and say they're still very relevant. You can look back on that webinar, but we'll be bringing them up again today. So things like, is it for women? These ideas of gender neutral and inclusive cosmetics, the idea of wellness products, lots of wellness claims out there, much more sensorial, emotive, natural and organic products. That's something we're seeing a lot of and it keeps happening. Products that are better for the world in terms of sustainability. We'll touch on that a little bit again today. Anti-pollu aging or anti-pollution products, looking at the effect the environment is having on our skin and cosmetics that can help protect that. The idea of mastige, so products that are prestige but available for the masses. CBD is still a very much trending cosmetic ingredient. We're still seeing lots of claim substantiation studies for those. And skin microbiome, which I'm going to talk about first, and connecting with consumers. So things like using your product reviews, making sure that you're using your marketing, your claim substantiation to really push things home to your consumers as well. But as I said today, what we're going to be looking at, so skin microbiome is still a really big thing out there and it's still very, very new. So I'm going to be looking at what the challenges are there. COVID-19 provoked trends. So obviously we are now a year into this pandemic and there have been a lot of trends that have come out of that, including Maskne, this focus on hand care, in-home salons and in-home product experiences. They've all come from COVID-19, so we'll be looking at that as well. And the idea of solid cosmetics, again, it goes back to that better for the world trend, but something that seems to be really, really pushing forward as part of that trend as well. So to get started, let's talk about skin microbiome. So to kind of give you the context first, the skincare market needs to approach skin microbiome by looking at, well, what is that and what are we looking to produce, what are those ingredients and what do they do? So there's kind of three parts of it. So there's probiotics. So it's the idea of looking at the good bacteria, as they call it. It's the kind of thing you really see when you look at the food industry. That's always had a microbiome thing, and you get probiotic yogurts and things like that. And it is the idea of making sure there's more good bacteria. So it's the same thing in skincare, making sure there's more good bacteria on the skin. There's prebiotics, which are looking at feeding that good bacteria and promoting its growth. Postbiotics, which is looking at optimizing the microbiome that's on the skin. So what's on there and how can we kind of benefit it? And again, it's kind of, as I put there, they're usually used alongside those other treatments. So, you know, once you've got your prebiotics, your prebiotics or probiotics on there, it's a real tongue twister. We need to make sure that we can protect it and everything like that. So it's all, as I said, super, super scientific stuff, but it's really interesting how it's broken down. And I want to talk about a brand in particular, put one in the spotlight, because it always helps to see what people are doing in the industry currently. And GALLINÉE have done a kind of a huge focus on microbiome with a lot of their products. If you go on their website, they have a page all about microbiome and what they're doing with that. But I just wanted to pick up one of their products as an example so you can see what they're doing with it, really. So this is a scalp and hair serum. So it's obviously to make the scalp and hair both feel protected, make the hair feel shiny. You can see already that we've got some claims straight away. We've got happier scalp and shinier hair. We've got some claims about it being dermatologically tested and suitable for all hair and style types, even the sensitive ones, and people that suffer with itchiness, dandruff or hair loss. So there's a lot of claims on there just from the first kind of view of the product, and very appealing ones in terms of what the product is able to do. And again, it's a real trending product, to be honest. We're testing a lot of products like this that are aimed at the scalp and then in so kind of helping with the hair as well. So they're kind of features. They have things about supporting the microbiome, which is why I picked this one up. But also they've got some nice kind of things about like balancing the scalp, protecting it. Cruelty-free, obviously not necessarily a claim that we can substantiate, but it's still a claim people make nonetheless, and soothing. So we look at their description a bit more because they talk more about the microbiome in particular in their description. So they're saying that it plays a crucial role when you're looking at scalp health, and by basically helping the microbiome is how we can reduce that itchiness and things like that, is by looking at the science behind the scalp and making sure that it's protected and everything like that. Obviously, then helps the hair. That's kind of what they're talking about there, and they're talking about the kind of other ingredients as well and how that helps the hair. So they're saying as well that it's a hair care range that is prebiotic. We've got that word there. So that's what they're doing. As we said, if I go back to the kind of one here, this is about promoting the good bacteria and promoting their growth. So this is what this product is looking to target in particular. So they're looking at the scalp's microbiome and everything like that. So what was interesting though is they do have their test results on there, which are specifically about the product. As we can see, these are all clinical results. So they've been done in a lab, as we've mentioned earlier. If we've got lab or consumer results, this is saying they're clinical. And these are all claims about the product itself. It's not necessarily about that microbiome. So these are all things that we can substantiate through a consumer test, because you're saying people have agreed with it. So the texture is light, it doesn't weigh down the hair is soft, the scalp feels less irritated, the scalp is soothed, and it respects the sensitive and delicate scalps. What I find interesting about this one is there are only 22 people in the study, which is incredibly low, especially when we're looking at this kind of data. Now, for a lab study, 22 people was quite fine, because obviously that's it's all an instrumental study. But these are already consumer-based claims about people agreeing with them. So this is something that generally, if we were looking at conducting a study ourselves, would not be substantial. However, any other results they might have got from that study in the clinical data might be substantial there. So yeah, it's just kind of an interesting note there to say it's interesting they've gone for a lower sample size to make these kinds of claims. And I know that certain advertising platforms will not accept something as low as 20.
As a market researcher, I say it's almost unethical to talk about percentages if you only got 22 people.
Exactly. So it's quite an interesting one on there. So that really brings me into misleading claims in particular, and it really is again a spotlight on microbiome at the moment. It is such a new trend. It's really, really tricky to make sure you've got that substantiation, because it's so new to people to know what the evidence is they require. So one of the huge players in the game, Unilever, got in hot water for one of their claims on microbiome, and it's basically me saying this is, these are the big players in the game. They have got claim substantiation built into their processes, as Thomas knows very well from his history there. It's something they really, really have a lot of knowledge in, but even they manage to get it wrong sometimes. So it's not that people are going, okay, I'm going to say this claim and just see what happens. It really is the fact that you can not always get it 100% right. So the ASA after that have put out a really good kind of news article about what to be sure of with microbiome claims, because they're going to obviously help and support where they can as much as possible in terms of what evidence is suitable there. So what their kind of key takeaways are is ensure the basis of the claim is clear to consumers. So what are you actually saying about the product? And that really relates to where it says, what does it actually do? In this case, they said it nourished the skin's microbiome. What does that really mean? It's not incredibly clear, because you can nourish the skin, but how do you nourish a microbiome necessarily? They didn't hold sufficient evidence in the ASA's eyes. So again, it's always making sure you've got sufficient evidence behind the claim. And they didn't make a medicinal claim, but this is something that the ASA have brought up. Don't make medicinal claims about your product. This is always a really clear thing with any claim, but when you're talking about things that are really highly scientific, such as microbiome, it might be that you can make those mistakes. So to be very clear, a cosmetic product is something that changes the appearance, changes obviously skin cream. It could be changing the odor, so things like an antiperspirant, and it could be doing something like whitening the teeth. So it's anything to do with things that can be perceived essentially. A medicinal claim is about curing something. So it could be, helping with eczema or something like that, a medicinal kind of issue someone has. So yes, always be sure you're making the right kind of claim. So just to kind of summarize as well from our side, microbiome studies will always require a level of clinical assessment. There is no way that a consumer can say, yeah, my microbiome feels like it's really growing. There's no way you can tell that. So there has to be some level of clinical there. However, the consumer studies can be used to assess the perception. So going back to our case study, where we're saying, okay, we know that the microbiome is being helped on the scalp and everything like that, but what can you perceive about your hair? How does your hair feel? How does your scalp feel? That's where the consumer studies can really come in. Can people perceive the microbiome claim? Because that's a huge part of it as well. Even if we know the microbiome is increased, can we perceive the actual benefits that are happening there? So that's a really good way to do it. And as we say there, link the two together and you'll get the best evidence. So over to you, Thomas.
Thanks, Carys. Yeah, well, we looked at the claims, and Carys already mentioned the claims we talked about last year. And the one thing about trends, of course, is trends don't change every 3 months. In a way, that wouldn't be a trend or just a fad. So as much as trends stay stable and become stronger or change a little bit, we felt it's now the time to talk about something that has really changed our life, which is COVID-19. Because this has really substantially changed the world in the last couple of months. And that's why we felt it's useful to have another look at trends and see what's actually changing in the cosmetics industry in the world now due to COVID. It's dominating our lives. It has a major impact. We see developments accelerate, some new come up, and we just wanted to share some thoughts with you to say actually what we see happening in the world currently. And we put this picture in there, but I liked it in a way that how this can even have an impact on the Mona Lisa. So, okay. What we see happening, just a few headlines you all know about this. People stay at home. So people work from home, which means they have less opportunities to go out for work and also for in their private lives. So they spend much more time at home. And also there are also quite a few people who are really careful and avoid contact if they are not even prohibited from having contact, because we know there are contact restrictions in many parts of the world. There are increased hygiene requirements in terms of, you hear it all the time, wash your hands and be careful and whatever. So hygiene is increased, and this implications on short term and also on a kind of medium long term. And we'll look at some of these implications in a minute. In the short term, we need to take care of the immediate impact. And I just put a kind of cosmetics overview that Cosmetics Europe has provided in here, just to look at the different parts of the cosmetic industry. And if we go through them, you can immediately deduce what is probably going to happen. So if you see decorative cosmetics, this is certainly declining, and I've got some customers that I talk to that they say actually, well, our business is very, very much down, because people don't really use eyeliner and whatever that much. You don't need to be as beautiful as normally if you're just in your home office, and if you don't have the opportunity to go to the theater or whatever it is. So this is definitely down. Hair care is probably a bit more of a mixed picture, but probably also similar down. Sun care, well, you can't really travel that much to enjoy the sun. So the sun care business, I assume, is also down. Oral care is an interesting one. So people seem to take care more of their teeth now they're at their home and they've got the time for it. Also, oral care actually is seeing an uplift. Skin and body care, I think, is a mixed picture, because I think in a way this kind of home grooming also leads to a very rather positive development in here. And perfume is something that you will see go down. If I haven't got figures yet, but I assume this is an area that is also on the decline. So we see there are less opportunities to be beautified and cared for, but you have more time to care for your physical and mental well-being. And this is what we see reflected in some of the developments over the last couple of months and the next months.
Great. So the other kind of trend which comes out of this COVID idea is the idea of Maskne. I'm sure people have heard this term thrown around, and I certainly have had Maskne, which I've never had before. Spots from my mouth, and it's horrible, but it's a really true thing. So it's all developed acne essentially for wearing face masks, but it is an umbrella term for all adverse skin. So people have also developed rashes, dry skin, essentially anything that happens when you have a mask. So it rubs the skin and creates a humid environment. So that's why we're getting things like spots, because you're obviously breathing in the same air and it's rubbing against it and making it all irritated. The kind of claims we're seeing and the kind of products out there are barrier creams, but also this term non-comedogenic. That's not how you say it. I knew that was going to happen. But yes, basically about blocking the pores. So things that don't block the pores and get the pores full of dirt. So this is something we've seen a lot of claim testing for as well, focusing on that. So my kind of question is, will this trend continue to exist? We are seeing the upside of coming out of COVID, fingers crossed. There's a lot of vaccinations rolling out and it's looking to be the way. So I don't know if by the end of the year necessarily we will be wearing masks or around all the time. So what's I've kind of put out there as a thought is to develop your marketing, but not your products. So obviously if you do a product that's Maskne, well, by the end of the year, it might not be there, but focus your marketing and your claims to develop those. So if you have a product that is non-comedogenic, then make sure that you're putting those claims out there. You know, say, okay, well, we've got evidence to say it helps clear your pores, and put that out there, because that's what people are going to really pick up off of. That's what I've seen a lot in marketing. So people that have a skincare routine out there that, you know, includes a toner, includes a cleanser, but also includes a barrier cream, they're now pushing that out there as helping with Maskne. But the claims are already there and they can continue to exist without masks as well. So there's also this lovely little Maskne prevention guide, which is exactly that. It's looking at putting stuff about cleaning the skin, making sure it's all clean and everything like that, and you're using a moisturizer underneath it, and not wearing makeup. So again, as we were saying about color cosmetics, there's no point wearing makeup if you're going to cover up with a mask, and then it's just going to affect your skin more anyway. So yeah, this is really where we're seeing the kind of marketing side go with Maskne. Also hands in the spotlight. So as Thomas was mentioning earlier, we have to really look after our hands now. There is a huge increase in hygiene. Certainly in the UK, I don't know if you'll hear as well, all the adverts, hands, face, space, wash those hands. So there are a lot of, you know, skin conditions developing from that where people didn't necessarily have it because it wasn't as frequent before. So there's lots of things of dryness and eczema. But really, we want to look at the oh God, I can't get but basically making sure that you are making sure your hands are protected before you're using with hand care, before you start using a hand hydrating cream, making sure they're clean and everything like that. There's also been a focus on fragrances. So I thought that was quite interesting that people are really looking about fragrances that resonate about wellness as well. So that kind of idea of self-care, looking after our hands, but then having a nice hand cream after, that kind of supports wellness.
And actually, in that context, I, for the first time, even saw the concept of hand masks, which I frankly hadn't seen before. So I was well aware of face masks, but actually that hand masks are growing now in this context is also something quite interesting, I realized.
I agree. Yeah, there's some really interesting products coming out of it that, you know, may have existed before, but people just weren't really interested in, and that kind of thing, whereas they've really been put in the spotlight now, as we say. So this is going to be my first chance for a case study and to talk about what kind of products we've tested that are specific for hand care that can really help with claims for this kind of, well, at this time when you want to market these kinds of products. So this is from a childcare brand who basically make products for children, but they're suitable for all ages. And this product in particular is aimed at adults. So it's a hand cream. But in particular, because they have products that are suitable for skin conditions, we wanted to focus on people that have either dry, sensitive or eczema prone skin. And talking about fragrance, they had different fragrance options they wanted to get some feedback from. So to look at the protocol for this kind of study, is in the UK, because they're a UK brand and that's their main market. We're just investigating one product, so it's a single placement. It was a 10-day study. It's plenty of time to introduce into their routine and make sure that they're enjoying the product. There was female and male participants on the study. They have dry skin, sensitive skin, and eczema prone skin, and we split it into a third. We also split the fragrances into thirds as well. So it was either orange or pink grapefruit or an unfragranced product. So what did the results look like for the study? So we have, I've basically combined all of those things together. So we did do obviously study instance investigating the different skin types and the different fragrances, but for now, to make life really easy and make this quite a generic results, this is everyone combined together. As long as all of those subgroups pass every single claim, which they very much did, they can use these in their advertising and use it as a kind of blanket statement, as we say, across the whole range and across all skin conditions. So this is what the report looks like. We get a summary table at the bottom of our reports, which really clearly states the number of people and the percentage of people that agree with each claim. So I've picked out three interesting claims that came from the study. We've got the product instantly leaves my hands feeling soothed and comforted, which is a fantastic claim to have on your products if you're looking for that instant relief. So we can see that we had 91% of people agreed with the claim. And we can see that there was over 200 people on the study as well. So it's fantastic for them to use in their marketing. Over 91% of over 200 people is a huge claim to make. We also have the skin instantly leaves my hands feeling moisturized and nourished. And again, we've got over 90% there. And the product leaves my hands looking replenished and healthy. So I wanted to put that one in because we've got lots about the feeling, but also how does it leave your hands looking? And replenished and healthy is a really good claim for this time at the moment when we're saying that it's got, you want to be healthy essentially is a huge claim at the moment. So as you can see, really fantastic results for their marketing.
By the way, it's also a nice way of putting it, makes it looking healthy. It's not a medical claim, but it's looking healthy, which is which is just an appearance claim, but it gives you this impression of something also medical impact.
Exactly. And it's what we were saying before, where there's a way we can word claims when it comes to consumer research. Yeah. So anything that's doing looking or feeling, you're very, very safe with. And yeah, you can, consumer can easily go, yeah, my hands look more healthy. It's an easy thing for people to agree with. So in terms of the legislation there, I haven't talked too much about advertising legislation today, but I do want to bring it in just to give you guys a kind of overview there. We've got the European Advertising Standards Alliance. Most countries in Europe have their own advertising standards, but they are an alliance of them to put out things about news and things like that. And what they are saying is basically, if you have any claims you're making about your product, you need to make sure they're substantiated. And you also need to be able to provide that evidence without delay. This is always the thing that I like to bring up. If you've got any claims that they're currently in the market that aren't substantiated, you may find that you're essentially getting away with it. But if they were to be picked up on, you would have to provide some kind of evidence, really sharpish. Otherwise, your adverts are going to be removed. So always make sure you have it before you go on the market. It's quite an obvious one, but again, people get caught out. It's not always on purpose. There's naivety there, or people are, not trying to spend the money on their claim substantiation. So always make sure you've got some kind of evidence behind your claims.
Carys, that's a immediate question. About what the SRO means.
Oh, sorry, that's my fault. It's usually I usually go into a lot more details. I say before you all today. It is a self-regulatory organisation. So I brought up earlier that we have the Advertising Standards Authority in the UK. They are the SRO for the UK. So each country has their own, or if they don't, they have something equivalent. But yes, that means self-regulatory organisation. So over to you, Thomas.
Okay, well, we all know about the importance of beauty salons, how far actually they help making people more beautiful and also make them feel more beautiful and feel being pampered for and feel good. And that's why they have definitely the right to existence and they're important. During COVID, we've got a situation that most of them are closed in most countries. So this is actually an opportunity for that many people miss to go to. And on the other hand, I think in these times, even some more people feel even more the need to being pampered and being taken care of. That's why, we tend to call this in-home salon. There are quite a few new things coming up that help you make you get your own beauty salon at home. So we got new offers for self-care emerging and growing. And we just put in one example here, which is Dermaflash, which is also something new to me. So obviously dermaplaning is an in-office treatment where a medical professional uses a surgical blade to remove both peach fuzz and layers of dead skin from your face. So it's really obviously kind of good operation to your health that the professionals do. But now we've got actually an offer an opportunity and a tool that does it, that you can do it yourself. So you can pamper yourself and help yourself. And this comes together with the corresponding moisturizers. You see in the back, there's a kind of pre-flash and a post-flash coming with it. So a nice way of pampering yourself. And as I said, I think it creates new opportunities for your in-home salons at home.
I have seen these products and I keep thinking, dare I try and use it?
Yeah, it's probably a bit daring to quite a few people think that.
I think wait till the start.
I hadn't thought of it, but I just thought it's interestingly coming up, becoming stronger. There's some other examples of in here. We have kind of peel for your feet, removes dead skin after 7 days. So also probably you're not supposed to walk around that much after having used the products, even though I'm not familiar with it. And also another liquid peels that you see over here. So what we see is quite a few new things coming up or other things growing. It's not completely new, these offers, but they're definitely on the rise due to the situation. Another thing that is also not new, but again accelerated and I think getting stronger during COVID, is your in-home product experience, because you can't go out to buy your beauty products. So you need to order online, and of course, online always the risk of making wrong choices. Of course, you can send back products and send it back and forth. But on the other hand, also you don't want to wait forever, and you want to try out. And that's why we see an increased demand or opportunity for augmented reality for virtual try-on. So there are quite a few tools and apps with artificial intelligence that allow you actually to scan your face and see how cosmetic products or other products would look on your face if you really applied them. So and those brands that can present themselves in a kind of virtual try-on, they create a strong competitive advantage, because this is something that others can't do. And if you have one brand that allows you to see how it looks like, another one doesn't, of course, obviously, you would go for the first one. And I think we've got a nice little video, Carys, that you can show.
Well, yeah, I was going to play again. But yeah, it's a great example there, exactly. And I think that is something that will continue to trend anyway. Again, I don't see, even when beauty halls open back up again, I think it'll be a long time until we're having, makeup testers allowed at the counter, because obviously that was a huge thing that happened. The cross-contamination is a huge thing people don't want to deal with. And I do think there may be a slight change in attitude anyway, to how people look at that. So yeah, I think these digital platforms are going to be great. I know that when I was in Korea, they had them in the shop anyway. So you'd have like a booth and you could do it there, which was incredible. And I'm sure it's something that's going to start, really taking off globally as well. But the next trend I want to talk about is solid cosmetics. This isn't necessarily a new trend, as we were saying. We've kind of talked about this last time, but it is a huge way that the industry is going, because it is more about being sustainable and reduce packaging. And it's also sustainable in the fact that it's very concentrated, so you use less water. And that's been a huge thing the cosmetics industry has been looking at. I know that L'Oreal in particular have been looking at doing their product development around having less water in the products. It's generally long lasting. We're conducting a study currently, which is looking at the long lasting comparison between bottles of shampoo and solid shampoos, seeing, how long does it actually last in comparison. And so that means overall there's a low carbon footprint, which is great. So I wanted to give an example of one of the studies that we've done for a bar product. So this is a moisturizing bar that's basically made by a contract manufacturer we work with. So they'll be looking at producing it for clients. But yeah, they want to make sure that they've got a consumer feedback for a product with very minimal packaging. So I said it might not have no packaging, because obviously it has to come in somewhere. Usually, I don't know if anyone shops at very well-known Lush, but they sort of do an aluminium packet and you kind of buy that and then you can refill it. And it's the same with lots of deodorant products. They're doing these things like refill subscriptions and stuff like that. But they wanted to get obviously feedback on the product itself, but what was interesting, they also want to get feedback on what the consumers think about this kind of product, about it being more kind of packaging free and everything like that. So what was the study design for this one? Again, it was a UK client, so we conducted it here. It was a single product investigation again. This time it's only 7 days. That was enough. There's no long-term effects on this body moisturizing bar. It should be quite instant results, and then get the feedback quite quickly. It was a female study because this is who they're launching the products on. A nice wide age range because it didn't really matter to them. They just wanted everyone to be able to use it. They did have on this one though, very different to our hand cream study. This is not made for people with sensitive skin or skin conditions. And again, we've got that same table. So this time we're looking obviously at these other kinds of claims. So we've got a skincare product without plastic packaging is appealing to me, which was I was mentioning earlier. This was really important for them to get, and they had over 95% of people agree, and about reducing single-use plastics, and we had over 93% there. But also we've got those efficacy claims, so the skin feeling nourished and the skin feeling soft and smooth, some lovely high claims there as well. Thomas, I'm going to pass over to you, and I'm going to just run and get my Mac charger. So
okay, yeah.
I'll be back.
Okay, yeah. Okay, well, so we briefly talked about the kind of medium versus long-term applications. So all these things that we saw before have been there before, and of course they're accelerated by COVID-19. But we also want to reflect a bit about how long-term and how sustainable will these developments be. And this made me remember a study we had done last year in April during the first lockdown, where we had done a survey with 900 respondents in the US, UK, and Germany about life after COVID. So we asked them, assuming the whole crisis is over, and how far do you think your behavior and your thinking will change or will have changed? Of course, this was a bit of anticipation, but as we felt already, this can give some indication of what people think and how far their life will change. And we saw that most people definitely believe their life will change for forever. So it will not go back to normal. It will not go back to pre-COVID times. There will be a slightly different life. And we asked some questions about what people would do less or more than before, what they would think they would do less and more than before. And the interesting thing was that we really see a lot of these kind of family values coming back. So spend time with my family. More than 50% actually said that they would think they would spend more time with their family than before the crisis, which really means that kind of hectic life we had before probably seemed a bit too hectic for some people. They get the feeling that having more family time is positive and can be a kind of ongoing, lasting positive development of this crisis. We also saw a very, very strong agreement of care for the environment. So also quite a few people seeing this as an opportunity to react to the overdue changes in our environmental behavior, and this might actually influence this and have this impact. Not surprisingly, also quite a few people think they will continue to buy products online. So this also is not going away. Once shops are open, of course, people will run back to shops, but the kind of overall online purchasing behavior will have increased. And also the majority of people thinks they will work more from home than before. So it's quite some interesting development. So we really feel that there's a kind of rebalance of home versus office. It's a rediscovery of family values. It's an increased environmental awareness and increased online purchasing, which of course has an impact on the evaluation, and which you could use as a base to discuss and think of how we think this will change our trends and have an impact on our trends. So onto the next one. Yeah, which was actually for us was a kind of base of just putting it up and also putting it up to you. So we would definitely also be curious to hear your thoughts on these trends and how far you think they will go on, or they will decrease, or will become stronger or not. Well, you probably see you see all the green tick marks already there. So in general, we believe they all are still valid. So no reason to have and see any of these trends has disappeared over the last 6 months due to COVID or anything else. They are still there. But it's maybe worth.
Great to hear your thoughts. If you want to put anything in the chat about any of these trends, we'd love to bring them up. I know that we've had some people in the chat. So there's someone said that they have looked at another webinar on microbiome and they think it is one of the most emerging trends worldwide. I agree, it's what people are talking about a lot. And as Makon's commented, is that it is something that will grow, but will consumers understand it? And I think that's what's really interesting about that trend at the moment is, yeah, it's really emerging, but how much do people actually understand about what it does? And is that going to halt it? Is that going to any way halt it? Or is there going to be more education about it? And certainly I have to say, when I was looking at GALLINÉE's website, when I was doing their case study earlier, absolutely, they have put out this whole page on the website which breaks down what is microbiome and what does it do to the skin, which is fantastic. That is what we need to be doing. If you're going to make the claim, do that kind of thing, have that kind of information out there, because it's really important, what people need to understand about. And I Becky, yeah, it's the new micellar, exactly that. And that, I remember going to a talk last year, talking about micellar as well, and actually that every cleanser is a micellar, but it was just a really interesting way that people would trend it, and kind of make it this micellar water, but actually, you know, if you put a cleanser of water, hey, that's a micellar water, which is really interesting. And it might be the same thing, you know, it's kind of that same thing where, what, you know, microbiome always exists. It's not like you don't have any microbiome, and what is that kind of product doing to the skin and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, if you've got any comments you want to share with us, I mean, feel free to share at any time. I can't see too many people kind of commenting on other ones there, but yeah, as someone says, they're all ticked, because these are things we're still seeing growing. Certainly about connecting with consumers, I think that's something that just keeps on growing as well, especially during COVID. Much more brands are reaching out, things like TikTok taking off, and brands are really looking at connecting with their consumers there. And I have to say, a really good way of doing that is by having consumer research, because you are making sure you've got opinions from your consumers on there. So I can see some kind of questions coming up about the other general stuff. So I'm going to summarize this one for today, and then we'll do a question and answer properly to get through to all of your other questions. So Thomas, if you can kind of summarize for us as well.
Yeah, well, actually, one thing that we want to share shares a bit of an outlook, because there's another question also we had in our survey where we asked also, do you think you will spend more or less spend time with friends going out? And you saw this was a bit of a polarizing response. So you clearly see that there are quite a few people also who feel like probably less. So it makes people a bit more cautious. We also saw that this kind of family values, spending time with your family, probably at home, is growing. On the other hand, especially with the younger ones, and not surprisingly with the younger ones, there are quite a few people who say, well, I definitely want to go out more. And I think the longer this kind of lockdown and the situation lasts, the more I think the need will increase to really go out and celebrate life and enjoy life. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a bit of a feeling of a new Roaring Twenties, with the people are with joy and energy and fun and probably expressive looks, cosmetics, colors. So something really joyful and lively as a kind of aftermath of this situation. We don't know when and how, but I wouldn't be surprised if something like this is coming up as a new trend, a new development. But of course, we know what the future will bring. We probably all know this quote by Mark Twain, but still I love it. Prediction is difficult, particularly when it involves the future. So we don't know, but we'll stay on it, and we'll keep you updated whenever we see something interesting.
Thanks, Thomas. To summarize why you should use us, because I've talked a lot about consumer research today, but a little bit more information about Ayton Global Research before we go to a question and answer. So we're an award-winning research agency, something that we're very, very proud of, and hoping for more awards this year. Now kind of awards are opening back up again. We are GDPR compliant. Of course, we have to be by law because we operate in the EU. But generally, it means that you know that we have got an ISO 27001, which is all to do with an audit on that process. We have our own data protection officer, something we take very, very seriously, especially because we have this panel of over 600,000 volunteers worldwide. We need to make sure that they are protected and that their data is being used properly, but also that your information is protected as well. We also have undesirable event reporting. It's a really big part of the process you have to do for any kind of testing, and that's all of the Cosmetic Vigilance Act. We have full product liability insurance in every country that we operate. We have an ISO 9001, which is to do with our quality assurance, and we are partnered to the Market Research Society. So it means that, again, we are following their processes, but under a little bit more scrutiny as a partner. So that means that our studies, are conducted properly. We have full training for studying questionnaire design, but it also means that our studies are conducted ethically. You get bespoke regulatory advice. That is what I'm here for, and you can always contact me. And you also get a designated study manager who will be appropriate for you when you kind of join us. So you get one person who gets to know you inside out, gets to know all of your research objectives and processes, and make sure they're using that moving forward. So I know we've got some great questions come in, so we'll jump straight into it. I'm going to pick up on ones in the chat first so I don't miss them, and then I'm going to move to ones that have gone into the Q&A. So just to check through, I've seen a few people ask about this, about the number of consumers that are suggested, the minimum number of responses. Thomas and I actually conducted a whole webinar about this last week. So we have a lot of thoughts on it. And I will actually share that presentation. And someone's also said about sharing the last trends presentation. In the follow-up today, I will share both of those because I think they'll be really relevant. But Thomas, can you kind of give us a summary about minimum responses maybe for today?
Yeah, I can. Well, our general recommendation is to have at least about 100 respondents, because this really allows you to make some statistical evidence and to really have a solid and valid interpretation of the results. If you want to go into split groups, so maybe compare men and women or different skin types or different age groups or different countries, whatever it is, make sure your minimum is about 50 people per subgroup. So this is a kind of absolutely minimum numbers. You will see that, of course, if it goes up, the results become more solid, especially also if you want to compare different products with each other, because then otherwise you really need to become very, very strict and very, very detailed in the responses. So as I said, as an overall guideline, if you just have a very broad target group without looking at the details, we would say 100 is probably fine.
Thanks, Thomas. I think that's a really good summary. But as I said, for more detail, I'll send over the presentation.
Yeah.
So going to the Q&A
or ask us.
Yeah. The main thing is that actually the takeaway really is always exactly that. It's a case-by-case basis. If you have a project, come and ask us, because that really is the best thing to do. But just going through the answers now. So we've got, are you okay to claim prebiotics or probiotics on pack? So essentially it's to do with the ingredient. What is it? What is the product? So obviously you can say what a product is, but as we've mentioned, it needs to have some kind of substantiation. That's not going to be my speciality. I can't say what a prebiotic is. I can't say what a probiotic is. But certainly, yeah, if it's what it does, as we sort of seen in that GALLINÉE example, they said this is the kind of biotic, postbiotic, prebiotic that this product is. So it's actually really important to say to anyway. Again, as we're talking about informed decision making, I would recommend that if you're going to do that, to say what that actually means to the consumer. So another question as well, we've got, how can brands still do free from claims? Okay, well, it's an interesting one again, because as you know, in the EU, there's a lot of kind of legislation behind it. All it's about it being a fair playing field. It's about the competitive landscape. So the free from claims, the idea is if there is something that isn't harmful, for example, parabens, you actually can't say that it's free from parabens because you're suggesting that every product that does have it in it is bad. However, what can be interesting is obviously North America, they don't have the same kind of restrictions there. So it may be that you're looking at a brand that is actually selling somewhere else. And that's why they're able to sell it. There's still a huge there's a huge kind of popularity about those kinds of claims there. So that's a big part of it as well. But There's some really good detailed information on the CTPA website, which is the Cosmetics, Toiletries and Perfumery Association. So if it's something you kind of want to see a bit more about, if you're advertising in the UK and EU, anywhere else, it's not so much a thing. Well, saying that, country specific, always look country specific. But yeah, I would look on there for some more advice. But it could be that you're looking at brands that are selling in other countries. So I'm going to say this one's been answered because we're asking about minimum responses. I'm just going to read this one out loud. So nothing unique about the formula to support microbiome. It is a normal formula. So this is to do with the GALLINÉE product. I think it's more of a comment just to say that it's nothing unique about it exactly. I guess, yeah, it depends what the kind of what the brands are doing and other brands are doing. It's just a case study that I found good because they're doing a lot about microbiome. But if you've got a particular question, please feel free to put it in there. I just want to make sure I get this one right. So consumer understanding the microbiome, is this a dispute between companies and brands? It's a very good question. Again, we're kind of giving more of an overview here. So do I think there's a dispute between companies and brands? I think there is. I probably think that's why the ASA picked up on Unilever. I'm sure it was a competitor rather than a consumer. That's how it tends to be picked up on. Again, it's really, really new. So I think that there's going to be lots of dispute generally in that trend while things get substantiated.
Yeah. And I think in the end, of course, consumers often don't understand the details, and most of them don't want to. so in the end, it should give them a good feeling and a positive feeling. And as long as Carys mentioned, as long as it's all fair and truthful, it's absolutely fine. It needs to be truthful and it needs to be validated. And then in the end, I'm not sure it really matters if consumers understand the real details or not. They can if they want to. I'm sure they can get informed. But as long as they get what they want, it's fine.
Absolutely. And next question here is just quite an interesting one. Have you seen brands actually referencing Maskne? How can they get around the acne association, which is seen as a medical term? It's a really good question. So as I said, there's no brands that are saying this product helps Maskne. It's not a Maskne product, but they are saying about products that can help with it. And I have seen a lot of that. The first thing is that obviously it's probably something that's not getting picked up on very much because maskne is not a real word. So even though it's associated with acne, as I said, it's associated with all problems people get from wearing a mask. But generally what I've seen, which is kind of clever, is what people are doing is they're looking at maskne as a term, and then looking at what advice has been put out by dermatologists to help with it, and then saying what products they have that help with those problems. And that's what I've actually seen a lot of, which is a really good way of tiptoeing around the subject, I guess. So for example, I saw an article from a brand that said, as I said, you need to make sure you've got you're cleansing all your pores and you need to make sure you're wearing a barrier cream. And they said, well, we have this product that cleanses your pores and we have this product that helps as a barrier cream. So yeah, it's an interesting topic. And I would say, don't say you have a Maskne product for that reason. And that's what I was saying before. Use your products that you have and say, they kind of market it in that way. But yeah, I wouldn't say, again, it cures maskne or anything like that, or it prevents it in particular. But you can say, has maskne clogged up your pores? We use this claw unclogging thing. And that's really how I'd say to get around the subject. And as I mentioned earlier, make these kind of products anyway, claim what they do and find out those claims, because the term's not going to be around forever. Hopefully we'll be wearing less masks soon, and you'll just have those products with those claims available anyway. So what do you do if you carry out instrumental and consumer tests but only pass one, i.e. for reducing the appearance of wrinkles? Can you still make a claim on this? Thomas, I don't know if you've got any comments in particular.
That's an interesting one. I think you probably can, assuming that you make the right claim. And you give the right validation. First of all, I don't really think it will contradict each other. Normally it should. Normally it shouldn't. So if you can validate it clinically, well, if you validate clinically and consumers don't realize it, okay, that might be an issue. and I wouldn't use that claim, because in the end it wouldn't be relevant, because you would probably disappoint your consumers. So from a marketing perspective, I wouldn't use a claim that's only clinically validated and doesn't perform on a consumer test. If it's the other way around, can't think of anything, because normally, as I said, I would also assume it the other way around. In the end, of course, use the strongest claims, and the strongest claims are probably those that you can validate both ways.
I think that's what I was thinking as well. That's my kind of main one. It is so unlikely that if you pass one, you're going to fail the other, to be honest. And very often, I mean, a lot of the time you're not really looking at doing the same test to replicate the same things. It would kind of be pointless. So obviously, you might substantiate things further. We have clients that have do a very small clinical study and then say, can we get some consumer data to substantiate this further? And as I said, it's really unlikely that they'll not pass, because that product has been proved to do that anyway. So that's kind of what we're looking at that way. But most of the time, if we're conducting a consumer study, you don't then replicate the same instrumental studies. You would choose the claims that you can't do through a consumer study. Things like 24-hour hydration. We can't say that the skin retains water for 24 hours, because a consumer can only say, okay, yeah, it's long-lasting hydration. They can't give a time on it. So it's kind of a weird case to kind of help with, because it's so it wouldn't really happen, I guess. But as Thomas says, always choose the strongest claim, and if it was kind of very contradictory, don't use those claims.
No.
So is Ayton Research currently focusing on any skin microbiome projects? So as we said, it's an interesting one, because we can't really substantiate skin microbiome claims, but we do work on projects that are to do with the consumer claims surrounding it. I'm currently working on a really exciting project that I can't talk about, but that's what we're doing. So they're using a lab in Germany who is doing the swabs and getting all of the bacteria and everything like that, and doing all the analysis there. And then we're running a consumer study to see what the consumers think about the benefits. It's something we've thought about a lot, and we can look at gathering swabs from our consumers, but at the end of the day, we won't be able to say any claims about the microbiome itself. So that's everyone in the Q&A. I'm just going to double check the chat and see if any other questions come in.
By the way, don't forget to put in the chat any ideas of future webinars that you want to hear more of us from.
Yeah, thanks. I haven't seen enough ideas yet. I'm going to get really excited with anything that came up today, and you're like, can you go into some more detail about that? I'm sure you've all got lots of questions. Yeah. So please do put it in there so we can have a good look. But just to summarize for today, there is some upcoming webinars coming anyway. So on the 12th of March, probably not for everyone here because you're more cosmetic based, but we'll be looking at pet care studies because we conduct studies for every kind of industry. Also on the 19th, I'm going to be looking at social market research and designing a study exploring current events. So this is based on an article I did recently and just kind of an interesting thing to look about. If you understand your consumer more, it can help you direct your marketing. And on the 26th, me and Thomas will be doing another webinar. As I've put at the moment, it is to be confirmed because we're hoping that you guys give us some really good ideas. And if not, I'm sure we've got plenty of inspiration based off your questions that we can look at. Also, just to point your attention to the direction of the Society of Cosmetic Scientists, we've got the SCS diploma, which is basically a course in the essentials of cosmetic science. It's a distance learning course, so you can do it anywhere in the world at any time. So please do look at the website link there. And there's also going to be the IFSCC Congress in London from the 19th to 22nd of September 2022. It's going to be a huge global event, and we're really proud to be hosting it here. So have a look at registering there as well. There's our contact information. I'm just going to check if there's any questions that we haven't answered, but I think they're just comments. So yeah, that looks really good. Yeah, just checking before I sign out. There is going to be our contact information there, but I'm also going to send out our emails when I do this big follow-up, which can have this webinar, our panel sizes webinar, and our last consumer trends webinar. And you can feel free to reach out to us at any time. Thank you so much for joining me today, Thomas.
Thank you, Carys, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you indeed, and have a fantastic rest of your day and a great weekend.
Thank you.